Welcome everyone to the Explore School-Based Student Support Profession session. Before I hand things over to our presenters, I want to review some instructions for navigating and participating in this session. Audio is muted and video and webcam sharing is not available for participants. Feel free to resize or move any of the session content tools around your screen. Next, enter your questions for the presenters in the Ask Questions section, and we will share your questions as time allows. If you have specific questions, please schedule a career advising appointment. The attendee chat is also available throughout this session. You may access the paperclip icon for a PDF of the presentation and download links and resources from the related content section. If any of the tool windows disappear during the session, you may access your toolbar at the bottom of your screen to open it again. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and is available on demand through the same link you used to register for the session. Once the session concludes, make sure to click the Complete the Webinar survey to provide us with feedback. I'll now turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Kayla, and hello, everyone. We have a very exciting program planned for all of you here today. If you have an interest in working with children in the school system, or maybe you're curious about school-based professions beyond classroom teaching, then this program is definitely for you. We have brought together a talented panel of Walden faculty who will tell us about 4 specific school-based professions. They are school counseling, school social work, applied behavior analysis, and school psychology. I am Dina Berggren from Career Planning and Development, and I am so excited to introduce our faculty panelists, starting with our first panelist, Dr. Stacy Bjorkman, who is the Academic Program Coordinator of the BS in Psychology program at Walden. Dr. Bjorkman is a former professional in school psychology and educational administration in the K-12 setting, and she has experience supporting the academic, emotional, and behavioral needs of students through assessment, consultation, and direct service delivery. She now enjoys conducting action research with adult learners in the online classroom to continually pursue effective educational delivery. We also have with us Dr. Renee Coley. She is a Walden University graduate with a PhD in psychology with an emphasis on teaching. She started teaching undergraduate psychology courses at Walden 3 years ago as a graduate student teaching assistant and has been a contributing faculty member for almost a year. Dr. Coley spent 20 years as a high school counselor in the Virginia public school system, and she has a passion for learning and teaching, and her research interests include adult learning theory, motivation, and metacognition. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Olivia Creary. And Dr. Creary has been involved in the field of social work for the past 33 years and has worked within the clinical arena, specifically working with the micro and meso populations. Prior to Walden, Dr. Creary worked as a school social worker for about 25 years, providing services to children and families, predominantly in the low socioeconomic arena. She is currently studying school social work as it relates to attachment theory, parenting, family development, and the role this plays in both children and adults within the school and social services system. We also have with us Dr. Stephen Little, who is the coordinator of the MS in Psychology program at Walden, including the Applied Behavior Analysis specialization. Dr. Little is a former president of the Division of School Psychology of the American Psychological Association, and also he is a fellow of the American Psychological Association. Dr. Little is a licensed psychologist and a board-certified behavior analyst. He has held faculty positions at universities in the United States and New Zealand, and he has over 50 peer-reviewed publications, 3 books, and over 100 presentations at professional meetings. As you can see, we have a talented panel with us here today. And to read our panelists' complete bios, please refer to the bios module in On24. As we prepare to dive into our topic, we would also like to learn a little bit more about you, the audience, and about your interests. Kayla will help us launch a poll.
Thank you. We would like to know which school-based profession interests you most. Is it school counseling? Maybe it's school social work. Well, what about applied behavior analysis? Now, you can't forget about school psychology. But if you're not sure yet and you need to learn more to decide, click that option. We would love to hear from you all. Awesome. We see those results are coming on in. Don't feel pressured. There's no wrong decision here. We just want to know a little bit more about you all. Oh, great. A lot of you are submitting. This is wonderful. All right, let's take a look at those results. All right, it looks like school counseling and school social work are the top 2 that you all chose. But coming in tied are our other 3, applied behavior analysis, school psychology, and some of you aren't sure yet. Don't worry, you don't have to be sure. You'll hear a little bit more information in just a moment.
Thank you, Kayla. And no matter what your interests are or where you are in your career journey, in the next hour, you will gain many insights and resources to further explore all 4 school-based professions and also help you determine which pathways may be the best fit for you. So let's get started by reviewing the goals for today's session. Although school counseling, school social work, applied behavior analysis, and school psychology all involve working with children in school systems, there are also many differences between these fields, and we will explore those during today's session. We'll also introduce the key roles and requirements for each one of these professions. And please also note that the roles and requirements may vary based on your location. For this reason, we strongly encourage you to contact your state licensing board to learn more about the specific licensure requirements in your state related to these professions. And during the program, you will gain valuable career planning tools and resources to continue your career exploration after the session. Please refer to your On24 related content module to access all of the resources and links for this program. And finally, we will make sure to save some time for your questions. Now, I'd like to hand it over to our first faculty panelist, Dr. Renee Coley. Dr. Coley will tell us about our first school-based profession, which is school counseling.
Thank you, Dina. I will discuss the key roles of a school counselor. As a school counselor, we work with students on academic, personal, and social goals to improve student outcomes. We collaborate with teachers and administrators, parents, and other stakeholders on behalf of improving student outcomes. So in order to become a school counselor, you do need to have a master's degree in school counseling and a certain number of internship hours. When I went to school to get my master's degree, I had to complete my internship at 2 different locations. And I just want to also say that, as Dina mentioned, this is based on location and states as well. So when I completed my school counseling program, I had to complete it in 2 different K through 12 settings. I chose middle school and high school, and I ended up working at a high school, and I've been there ever since. If you would like to explore other career options with a degree in school counseling, you can work at a community service board, one of your local community service boards, which works with mental health in the community. You could also work with a community counseling program. And if you have 18 credit hours in the field, you can also possibly teach at one of your local community colleges. I happen to work with a colleague who, she's a school counselor, but she also has her license as a professional, licensed professional counselor, and she does private practice part-time. So that can be an option too if you decide to get your license as a licensed professional counselor. If you would like to learn more information about school counseling, our professional organization is the American School Counseling Association, and there's a link to this site in the school-based professional resource list. There's also usually a state professional organization that's connected to the American School Counseling Association, or ASCA for short. And both organizations offer professional development opportunities such as annual conventions and continuing education credits. So now I will walk you through a day in the life of a school counselor. And again, this could vary based on what level of school counseling you decide to go into. It could also vary based on the size of your caseload. But typically, my caseloads have been as few as 400 students and as many as 500 students. However, that's at the high school level. If you were at an elementary school, in my school division, it's typical that an elementary school counselor is the only one there. And that would, he or she would service the entire school. But caseloads can vary. At my school, we're divided up by alphabet, and right now I have about 400 students on my caseload. Most school counselors in my school division are on a teacher contract, and so we have what's called duties. In the morning, me and the other counselors that I work with, we rotate duties either in the cafeteria or on the bus ramp. And usually that just involves about 20 minutes of kind of controlling traffic. And then once I get back to my office, I am doing what I like to call putting out fires. I am responding to emails and phone calls. And these emails and phone calls could be from parents or students or administrators who have requested something that requires my immediate attention. So usually I'm doing that first thing in the morning. And also we usually have new student registrations that come in the morning, and school counselors assist in that regards. We talk with students and parents and equate them to the school and help them set up a schedule. New student registrations usually are ongoing all throughout the year. Excuse me. I also deal with walk-in students and parents. Usually we would prefer that students and parents make an appointment. However, it's not uncommon to have random students and parents to walk in throughout the day with concerns. And so we, make ourselves available to them. As a school counselor, we also set up collaborations with teachers and administrators. And so teachers and administrators or other support staff, they could come down and, discuss students and student situations at any given point in the day as well. School counselors will set up monthly classroom visits at my school. And so we have a calendar that we keep of monthly classroom guidance lessons that we complete. And those guidance lessons can be on topics such as grief or bullying or academic planning. I do some individual counseling, and usually that's considered grief solution focused counseling. Occasionally we will have a student in crisis. And by crisis, I mean students who have threatened to harm themselves, or it could be a situation of child abuse. And in those situations, a team of us are working together. And so it's not the school counselor by themselves. We usually are working with an administrator and perhaps the school resource officer and maybe even the school nurse. But we will follow the established protocols that our school division has put into place. But occasionally we do have students who come down that are in crisis. Usually school counselors are doing what we call program planning, and that can vary based on the level of school counseling that you're doing, whether it's elementary or middle or high school. As a high school counselor, right now, for instance, we are doing things like coordinating scholarships. We're working on student schedules for this upcoming semester and for the upcoming school year. We have planned a couple of college fairs at our school and parent information nights. So it can really just depend on the type of program planning that you're involved in, and that can vary. And also school counselors are invited to different meetings, and the types of meetings that we attend are usually parent-teacher conferences, 504 meetings, attendance meetings, IEP meetings, staff meetings. Sometimes these meetings occur during the school day. Sometimes these meetings occur after school. We may not always attend the meetings. And depending on the school division you work in, the school counselor may have more direct contact with the coordination of some of these meetings. But you do have certain meetings that you are required to go to, and then certain meetings that you try to go to. But you may be invited to all of those types of meetings. So, Kayla, did we have any questions in the chat?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay.
Our first question is, what would be the time frame to complete a postgraduate certificate, and are they equivalent to another master? For example, completing a master's of MCH, then going back to school for counseling?
Usually postgraduate certificates are different from master's degrees, and usually it's a matter of the number of credit hours. So my best advice is, if you are interested in obtaining a master's degree, and then after that obtaining some type of post degree, to check with the individual school and to check with your advisor to see what credits are involved, because obtaining a degree and getting a certificate or getting a certification, there's always different criteria involved with that.
Awesome. Our next question is, when do you really provide counseling to students? Are they as they are in class all day? Do you see students on a regular basis for counseling?
Yes and no. I have my frequent flyers who might come down, for instance, during lunch and pop in to see me. I have students who might do what's called a check-in, and they might stop by in the mornings, or they might stop by at some point during the school day. At the high school level, you always have students who are trying to get out of going to class, and so they try to come down to see me and talk to me versus being in class. But we don't just sit around in our offices with appointments for students to counsel them per se. Usually if we're seeing students, it's because of some immediate concern that they have at the moment. Either it's another student that they're having some issue with, or a teacher that they're having an issue with, or something that happened in class that provokes them to want to come down and get something off of their chest, or they have just a general question about a class or a teacher or a situation. Now, we do try to meet with each student to plan their schedules and to talk about their post-secondary plans and to make sure that they're on track for whatever it is that they would like to do after high school. However, we don't typically see students on a regular basis. That's kind of beyond the scope of our job description.
Wonderful. And our last question for you is, can we still become a school counselor with a social work degree?
There's certain classes that you have to have. And so sometimes you can kind of cross over, but there's certain classes that you're going to have to meet in order to go through what's called like KCREP accreditation standards. And so if you have those classes that you take within your program and you do the internship that's usually required, it's going to be based off of your school division, your state, and whatever state licensing requirements in order to be a school counselor. So if, say, if you are in Virginia, there's certain licensing requirements. You have to have a certain number of internship hours and certain classes that reflect on your transcript. And so those are things that you should start checking into now based on the state. And I would go to the Department of Education for your state's website. And usually there's licensing requirements, and it's usually kind of laid out there what you'll need to get hired as a school counselor in your state.
That is outstanding information. Those are all the questions we have for you right now, but okay. I'm sure there will be more at the end.
Okay.
Thank you again. I'll now turn it over to Dr. Olivia Creary to discuss School of Social Work.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. So before I get started, I want to make sure that I indicate that the information that I'm going to provide is for the state of Florida. There are some states, such as North or South Carolina, that require you to take courses in school social work in order to work in that field. All right, so that being said, what do? Key roles is to advocate for the families with school-based officials. So my exact title is or exact job description is I'm a liaison between the student, the school, and the family. So sometimes I need to advocate with school officials, let's say with the counselors or with a teacher or an administrator, to advocate for what the needs of the family is that they don't quite fit with what is available or what options are within the school. I do short-term therapy with students who come in who are actively in crisis, suicidal or homicidal or depressed, and they need someone to talk to, and I would provide short-term crisis management and then refer them out for long-term care. I also advocate for the needs of the student and the family, and this is with outside agencies. As we know, Maslow's hierarchy of need, a student cannot learn if they're not able to deal with some of their most basic needs being met. So what I will do is I would advocate with social service agencies to provide those services that the client might need and the family might need. And it's not just the grassroots services, but also things such as like a wheelchair or respite care for ACL student, things like that that are sort of outside of what you would say the everyday realm of services are. Case management, referral and information, we're referring them to different agencies that can provide additional services as they're needed. Medical referrals, we explain how this happens. When we're talking about mental health services, what does it look like? How often does it happen? What does it cost? What are they looking for? Like all of those kind of psychoeducational information I would provide to the family and the student as needed. Of course, as I mentioned, grassroots services, housing, food, those types of things. Attendance concern is a big one. The idea is that if students enjoy coming to school, that's where their social life is, that's where their activities are, the fun stuff is there. If they're not coming to school, the idea and the feeling is that there's something happening within the community or the home that is impeding that decision or that choice to come. Electronic documentation. Electronic documentation has to do with, just like in a regular agency or anything, we have to document what we do. If we don't document it, it didn't happen. Within the Florida School Board, the documentation is made available to administrators and some counselors, as well as the ESE specialists. Some of those support services individuals can see what is happening. So we provide a full rounded information. So even if the student change from one school to another, that record is still there. Back in the days when they used to do that, individuals would escape services or fall through the cracks because everybody was recreating the wheel. With this electronic documentation, it follows the child wherever the child goes, so individuals in other schools can see what's going on. Threat assessment, suicidal ideation, same thing where we're doing the crisis management, and we're of course working with other social workers to address those concerns. So next slide, please. So what does my day look like? Oh, sorry, required education. You need a master's degree in order to be a school social worker. It has to be in the school social work realm. In order to be a school social worker, you will be required to take the FTCE. If you are a licensed clinical social worker, as I am, you don't have to take those exams. You can register for the Florida Teaching Certificate without those. Next slide, please. I'm worried I'm going to run out of time. All right, so a day in the life of school social worker. My time is my own to schedule. That being said, when I had a list, I would come in every morning and write what I plan on doing. If I got a third of it done, it was a great day, because you're usually interrupted by crises, by students, by teachers coming down for assistance. Any and everybody, your door is open and they can come, and it derails your plans. However, I am meeting with students. I am meeting with families. I am going out to the family's home to provide services when necessary. I'm not just willy-nilly going out to a home visit. When it's necessary and it is prudent, then I would go out and meet the needs of the family. I am meeting with multidisciplinary teams where we're talking about how the child is functioning, what some of their concerns are, and how the two are going to meet. I am helping do some psychoeducation with the school professionals as well to explain how things such as depression or family strife can impact the performance that the student is seeing, or that the school staff is seeing. Other areas of employment, we do have alternative centers. These are centers for individuals who are behaving outside of what is expected. These are centers that their primary identification is dealing with the behavior, but they do offer academics as well. Those are alternative areas where you're able to become a school social worker. Those are where you can learn more. I believe you guys are going to get a list of options of where you can search for other additional resources as you need it. Whew, I'm finished. I don't know if I made the time. Did I make the time? Are there any questions for me?
Yes, there are. The first question is, do you need a master's to work as a healthcare social worker?
Yes, you do. as without a master's, you're really not able to make client contact. Without a master's degree, it's very difficult to make client contact. You can, with a bachelor's degree, you're doing more case management and paperwork behind the scenes. But to have actual contact with the client, you need your master's degree.
Awesome. Our next question is, can you give us an example of a time when you did need to do a home visit?
A parent, I needed to complete, I didn't even talk about psychosocials. Psychosocials are recommended by the federal government to identify it's like an assessment that you're completing of what the needs are in the history of the family. If I have to complete a psychosocial and the parent is not able to come into the school, I will make a home visit to the home to complete that complete that assessment. And it's a psychosocial is an assessment where you're looking at the history of the family, the history of the student, the academic history, the mental health history, and the social history. I hope that answers that.
Awesome. Our next question is it possible for forensic social workers to be involved with school social workers?
No, not necessarily, because with forensics, you're looking at criminality, and those two don't usually meet. So, I mean, you can, as if you want to get into forensic social work, you probably might be working with a child who might have who might have engaged in illegal activity or done something, but it wouldn't really be, unless you're trying to get some information of a history of how the student functioned in the school, you're really not working together with them.
Wonderful. I believe those are all of our questions right now. Again, guys, you can put those in the Ask Questions section. We'll have a time at the end to continue those questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Curiri. And I will now turn it over to Dr. Steve Little to discuss applied behavior analysis.
Thank you very much. And first, I want to say that I probably need to tell a little bit about applied behavior analysis. Behavior analysis is a science based on learning principles. Primarily the principles you may have had Skinner, Watson forming the basis of behavioral thought. And we basically want to help people live to their full potential. I mean, that's the key thing. And the practice of ABA focuses on the environment. The idea is that the environment influences behavior. And we do assessments based on this assumption that we will be working with the environment that the individual is in. And that includes people in the environment. Doesn't mean we're denying that there are emotions and more internal constructs, but rather what do we have access to be able to effectively modify individuals' behavior, and that comes back to the environment. We can control that. And ABA has been used to address multiple behavioral needs and in multiple areas, including general and special education, organizational management and safety, gerontology, and many more. But it's best known as being the leading evidence-based treatment approach for autism and other developmental disorders. And within schools, primarily the caseload would involve children on the autism spectrum and then possibly those with intellectual disabilities. Next slide. Okay, required education. What you want to be is a board certified behavior analyst. There are two credentials below that. A registered behavioral technician is basically a high school level person who does most of the one-to-one interactions with the clientele. Then there's a BCABA, which is board certified assistant behavior analyst. And that person works under the the BCBA, and basically does those things that they're told to do. They may do some assessments. They do more than just work one-on-one with clients, but they are working at the behest of the BCBA in that environment. Now, the key thing on becoming a board certified behavior analyst, and excuse me for 1 second, I have a cat that's in the way. Cat doesn't bother me at all until I get on camera. Okay. I apologize for that. Okay. To be a BCBA, you need to have a master's degree. The degree does not have to be in behavior analysis. The degree can be in anything. For example, my PhD is in school psychology. You'll learn more about that in a second. But I went to a school psychology program that had an emphasis on behavioral interventions, and I met the criteria for becoming a board certified behavior analyst. The degree can be in anything. You could have your degree in European literature as long as you take the right coursework in addition to the degree. And that coursework is what we call a verified course sequence. Walden's ABA program is approved by ABAI, which is Association for Behavior Analysis International. And there are 7 courses that comprise the core courses in behavior analysis. And as long as you have those 7 courses, you can have a master's degree in anything. Our program right now is an MS psychology and with a specialization in applied behavior analysis, but it can be in other areas too, as long as you have those 7 courses. You then need practical experience. The requirement right now is 2,000 hours of practical experience, which is a lot. That's a year of full-time work. But one of the advantages to this, unlike some other areas where you have to have an internship after you have done your coursework, you can start collecting the experience, the practical experience, from the first day that you start your first course in behavior analysis. So as there's 7 courses, like at Walden, that would take you a minimum of 1 year to go through those 7 courses. It is possible to get your practical experience through while you're taking the courses, although most people take longer than that. Now you have the degree, you have the coursework, you have the practical experience. There is an exam. It's a BCBA exam. I took it a while ago when it was first started. So I can't say exactly what the content is now, but I don't think it's changed that much. The practical experience, there is a task list, and you have to get experience on every single one of the 100 or so items on that task list. The BCBA exam is based on that. And so if you, and we also build into our program, we have a book that is a prep book for the exam that we've built into all of our courses so that you can be preparing it from the day one that you start your courses. Okay, next slide. A day in the life. And this is, if you did this, you would not have much time to do anything else. But I wanted to put all the things that could come into what you do. When you have a master's degree and you are a board certified behavior analyst, you are primarily responsible for developing programming and then supervising other people in the implementation of that programming. You may be doing assessments, but you are not doing as much one-on-one interaction with the clients. So one of the first things you'd want to do is go to those people you're supervising, the BC ABAs, the assistant behavior analysts, and the RBTs, the registered behavior technicians. And from that would start them going. They could answer their questions. You could provide a group supervision. You may also have individual supervision later on, which I didn't have on here, but I wanted to get that idea on there. Conducting a functional behavior analysis is a key component in being a behavior analyst. And I won't go into all the details on what it is, but the key thing is your behavior is not random. If you engage in a behavior on a consistent basis, there's a function it's serving, there's a purpose it's serving. Primarily, is it positive reinforcement? Is it negative reinforcement? Something is reinforcing that behavior, and we want to identify that so we can develop better programming. IEPs, you would be involved in IEPs. I only gave you a half hour for lunch, so you better eat quick. And classroom observations would be a major part of what you do, observing specific individuals in the classroom to see factors that are related to their behaviors. Consulting with parents can be another major function of what you're doing, because the programming, especially for children on the autism spectrum, if it just goes on in school, it's probably not going to generalize by itself to other environments, such as the home, such as to more social situations. So you want to involve the parents with the programming that's going on with the school, so there's consistency across different settings. You are also there to intervene when there's a crisis. And depending on what type of school you're in, there could be more or fewer crises. But you will at some point be trained in crisis intervention, how to handle somebody who has become a danger to themselves or to others. And developing behavior plans is a major function. And of course, no matter what you're doing, especially in schools, there's a lot of paperwork. So you'll be doing those type of things. Next slide. Now, you're not limited, if you're a board certified behavior analyst, you're not limited to working in schools. You are eligible for private practice. Now, there is a separate licensure in different states, but virtually every single state, the criteria for licensure in that state are the same criteria that you need to do to become a board certified behavior analyst. So they go together. It just has more paperwork and more money you have to pay to get it. But you can open your own private practice. You can open your own service where you are providing services in the home. Insurance companies pay for those services, and they will reimburse. You can get third-party reimbursement as a board certified behavior analyst. Clinics, there's a lot of clinics primarily for children on the autism spectrum. Adult rehabilitation, an individual that I supervised his fieldwork a few years ago, his first job after becoming a BCBA was working with adults who had traumatic brain injury. So that's definitely something you could do. Organizational behavior management would require a couple of additional courses, but there could be some big money in working with companies and on the same basic behavioral principles that you'd use with a child with autism or an intellectual disability. Consulting work. If you want to get a doctorate, you could become a university professor like us. And early interventionists. And there's also something people don't think about. Insurance companies are paying for people to get these services. They need people who understand those services. So they hire people also to review cases. And so all of those, there's a lot of variability. And one other thing, the pay is really very good, and there's no shortage of jobs pretty much anywhere in the country for behavior analysts. And next slide. And these are organizations that you could have, and I know you get a list of those, but the key thing I want to focus on here is if you have questions, that's my email address on there. And I'm happy to talk to anybody, answer your questions that may be specific to you, or if you want to even talk, we can set up a phone call or a Teams meeting or something where we can actually talk. Hope I didn't go too long. Questions?
We have a couple of those. Our first question is, can you have an alternative degree and still have a career in ABA?
Yes. The degree is not as important as having those courses. As I said, with Walden, it's 7 courses. Some universities have 8 to meet the requirements of the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. So as long as you have those courses and you get the field work, your degree can be in any area. As I said, my degree is in school psychology. We have a lot of people who have education, the teachers who want to get more opportunities to maybe work more intensively with a smaller number of children. We have social workers. We have school counselors. And the degree isn't that, but they've gone back and taken the courses they need to become board certified.
Awesome. Our last question is, what do you find more enjoyable, ABA or school counseling?
I like ABA. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I do have a practice where I use cognitive behavior therapy. When I was working in the schools, I did both. I did counseling as a school psychologist as well as ABA, and it's hard to say. There are times when I really like the more counseling aspects of things, and there are times, but I try to approach everything from a behavior analytic perspective, and that is looking for environmental causes for behavior or a lack of behavior. Whether you want to increase or decrease a behavior, and you're working on specific goals, the training in behavior analysis, I think, is invaluable in helping you as a counselor also, because you tend to focus more on the empirical aspects of things. One of the sayings we used to have when I was in graduate school was, "In God we trust, all others must have data." And that's the way that I look at everything, whether I'm working with a middle-aged individual who is depressed, or I'm working with a 6-year-old child on the autism spectrum. I want to see data to support what's going on, and especially in the progression of, be it counseling therapy, be it behavior analysis, behavior therapy. I want to collect data so I can track progress and how well they are working towards their goals and what modifications may be necessary in order to be a more efficacious professional. We want to help people. That's what we're all here for.
Wonderful. Our last question is, so can I work as an ABA with my master's as long as I take the classes I need, or can I start now with my bachelor's?
With the bachelor's, you could become a board certified assistant behavior analyst. That still requires a lot of the same credentials. They just don't have to be a graduate level course in, say, behavioral assessment and the other aspects of behavioral interventions. You get a lesser quantity, a smaller quantity in less detail, but yes, you can and do it that way, but you still have to go through the same general steps, and you have to be supervised by a board certified behavior analyst.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll now hand it over to Dr. Stacy Bjorkman to discuss school psychology.
Thanks, Kayla. Hi, everyone. So I worked in the K-12 setting as a school psychologist before coming to higher education. So I'm going to talk to you about that today, starting with the required education. There are really 2 tracks you can take in school psychology, a specialist track and a doctoral track. And depending on the university where you get your degree, sometimes they're kind of rolled into one, and other times you have to choose which path you're going to take at the very beginning of your program. The doctoral specialist degree typically takes 3 years, and the doctoral degree typically takes 4 to 5, including dissertation time. And there is a combination of coursework in psychology and education and special education. And there are also scaffolded practicum experiences that are required. So typically the first year is a half a day a week in the school, shadowing the school psychologist, doing classroom observations, really acclimating yourself to what is developmentally appropriate in the K-12 setting. So you have a good foundation of what is typical in terms of academics and behavior for students at all grade levels. The second year is most likely 1 day a week in the school where you're gradually taking on some responsibilities as a school psychologist. So you might be doing some academic assessment. You might be with the school psychologist who is mentoring you, doing some group or individual counseling, doing more observations, doing some consulting with teachers. And then the last experience is a 1,200-hour supervised internship where you're immersed in the school for an entire year from day 1 to the last day of school, 180 days here in Wisconsin. And you are gradually taking over more and more responsibilities. So by the end of the year, you're functioning fully as a school psychologist and taking over the full role, really, and being supervised by your supervisor. There's also the opportunity, if you pursue the doctoral degree, to get clinical licensure. If you do a 1-year postdoctoral supervision, and there are some caveats, some additional requirements with accreditation, but you just know that if you wanted to do something in private practice or something like that, that is possible with a school psychology degree, depending on ensuring that you have the relevant coursework and supervision. So where do school psychologists work? One thing again about required education, typically school psychology graduate programs are pretty competitive. So if you're an undergraduate student, really focusing on your GPA, the breadth of experiences you have in coursework, taking some education courses, excuse me, if they fit into your schedule, and then getting relevant work experience or volunteer experience, volunteering in a school, in a public library, Boys and Girls Club of America, things like that, where you're demonstrating experience working with children would also be really good for application. Okay, so now where do school psychologists work? Wide variety of places. Obviously, the K-12 public education system. Special education services are offered to students before preschool, so birth to 3 for identified disabilities. So school psychologists can work with very young children. And then students who are eligible for special education services are entitled to those services through age 21. So even after the typical 12 years of high school, there are vocational programs that focus on preparing students with disabilities for employment. And so there's opportunity for school psychologists to work there too. Obviously, higher education. And then Dr. Curry mentioned specialized school settings or alternative education centers. Some school psychologists work in hospitals. So where if children are hospitalized for emotional reasons, depression, self-harm, they are required to have school services provided to them in the hospital setting as well. So school psychologists can work in that hospital setting to ensure that students' educational needs are being met at the same time that their emotional and behavioral needs are being met while outside of the public school system. Juvenile justice centers, kind of the same thing, making sure that students who are in juvenile justice centers are getting a free and appropriate education. And finally, something we don't always think of the school psychologists are sometimes employed by companies that serve children. So, for example, book publishers, textbook publishers, reading curriculum publishers, toy companies will hire school psychologists to help ensure developmental appropriateness of toys. So there are lots of different opportunities. And post-pandemic, a lot of more opportunities have been offered online. So sometimes students with individual education plans who receive special education services will have written into their plans a certain number of counseling minutes to be delivered each week. And so there are virtual opportunities to deliver counseling minutes to students. There are virtual opportunities to do assessment. Now that is really kind of an emerging field that's happened in the past few years. Okay, next slide, please, Kayla. Okay, key roles. I'm going to go through this really quickly because we're closing in on time, but the National Association of School Psychologists website that is in, if you click that on the bottom, click the paperclip icon, that website is listed in there, and I believe it's also on one of the next slides. But the key roles of a school psychologist are assessment and data collection, both for individual students and school-wide, kind of helping everyone, educational administrators, teachers, school boards, stakeholders understand the vast amount of data that is available at this point on students and how they learn, consulting and collaborating with teachers, helping academic, behavioral, and emotional interventions at the individual level, class level, school level, and really supporting diverse learners. Another thing that school psychologists do is help program evaluation. So I mentioned textbook publishers, reading curriculum. How do we collect data to help us assess if this reading curriculum is meeting the needs of our students and our students are making progress the way we would expect them to be? Okay, next slide, please. This is you'll see on the next slide. Thanks. A day in the life, again, as Dr. Little said, like if you accomplish this and Dr. Curry, like then you are like winning at life. But this is just an example of what a day might look like. You're consulting with a teacher to develop a behavior plan. School psychologists do use principles of applied behavior analysis. It's not all we do throughout the day, but we do use those principles to develop behavior plans to manipulate or influence students' behaviors in the classroom. We might do grade level presentations on bullying or stress management or anything that teachers have identified as an area of need for their students. Typically, students who have special education services need to be reevaluated every 3 years, and their progress needs to be discussed yearly. So we're participating in that process, collecting progress data on students, administering standardized assessments, interpreting data. We also do some crisis intervention, depending on, sometimes a crisis walks into the main office and it's like, well, who's here? The social worker, the school psychologist, the counselor, which person is available to help with this crisis situation? So as those situations arise, school psychologists can intervene. I mentioned before about the virtual opportunity for counseling minute delivery that also happens in person, social skills groups for children, grief groups for children, individual minutes for students with an emotional disability, helping students transition from alternative settings if they were in an alternative school setting or a hospitalization, helping to ensure a very smooth transition as they return to the school setting. And then, potentially planning a positive behavioral intervention celebration with teachers for classrooms or schools or grade levels that have done a really good job with their behavior and their character in the school setting. Okay, next slide. Okay, so where to learn more? Again, click on the bottom, that paperclip icon. It will link all of this for you. Again, the National Association of School Psychologists, your state's psychology association. I think it's a really good idea if this is a field, if any of these fields are of interest to you, to actually set up a meeting with someone in your area who is performing that job. And you'll get a lot more information about how it works right in your area. And then I'll open it up to questions.
Awesome. Our first question is, what inspired you to become a psychologist and work in this field?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was a psych major in undergrad, and I got a job as in sales after graduation, and I was totally miserable. Like I am still a terrible terrible salesperson. And so that was not working for me. And so I started substitute teaching as a kind of like a placeholder, like what am I doing, you know? And in doing that, I got to work with the school psychologist in the school building where I was subbing for a couple of kids that I was working with. And I was like, hey, this looks like a pretty good gig. You know, yeah, I don't have a classroom of like 25 kids to manage. I'm working one-on-one. I'm still incorporating psychology. It's in the schools, each summer's off. You know, I mean, there were so many perks, and I really liked the collaboration piece, the consulting with teachers and kind of coming up with plans and ideas and structures to help kids succeed. And so that exposure to that school psychologist and that in when I was substitute teaching was really pivotal for me, and kind of spurred my interest. And then I started as an educational specialist in a master's program. I was like, no, I'm just going to be a school psychologist. And my dad was like, but wouldn't it be cool if you got a PhD? I was the first one in my family to go to college. And he was like, you know, wouldn't it be great to be Dr. Bjorkman? And I was like, yeah, that would kind of be cool. I mean, it was the stupidest reason ever to get a PhD, but it ended up really working out because I am so happy. I get to do some consulting with schools. I get to work in higher ed. So I don't know, kind of a broken road, I guess I would say. One decision kind of led to another and led to another, and it wasn't this beautifully planned out path that you might expect it to be.
Awesome. Our next question is, once I complete a degree in psychology, can I teach online in undergrad psychology if it's a PhD?
So if you earn a PhD in psychology, yes, you can teach online. In fact, some programs at Walden, all of our instructors are doctorally trained, but in some programs, I think you can teach with a master's in psychology. It just depends on the job posting requirements.
Okay, I think we have other questions, but it's past the hour, so maybe we can move on to the next slide, and I can just quickly run through a few of the slides for career planning and development. So much great information today from all of our faculty panelists. And I do want to invite all of you who are looking to learn more and explore career options, all of the school-based support professions and other careers that are out there and requirements for those careers, future outlook, salary ranges, and so much more. So for this purpose, we have the Career Exploration tab, which is available through Career Planning and Development. You do have a link to the entire Career Exploration tab in your On24 content module and in your resource list. So we have many self-knowledge tools to assess your interests, skills, strength, personality traits, and more. We have external guides. What can I do with this major to help you learn about other majors out there? Career research sites. Some of my favorites are listed here: ONET, Career One Stop, My Plan, and many more that are available on our website. Many career planning tools to help you set career goals, specialized career hubs that are available for psychology, education, and counseling, and our signature career skills program on career exploration. And also, we have additional career support that is available to you, an entire website with career management tools, 2 custom job search systems, including the Walden Job and Internship Locator job board and Going Global job search system. We have Skills First, which is a great career management tool to help you build resumes, cover letters, career portfolios, practice elevator pitches, and even practice mock interview skills. If you would like career support, you can schedule a career advising appointment. We offer 45-minute career advising appointments via phone or Zoom, and you can schedule your appointment on the career planning and development homepage. Attend live events. This is a special topic program that we are offering here today, but we also offer quarterly career skills programs and monthly office hours events. And please join us on social media. We are on LinkedIn and Facebook. We have a great blog that has student success stories and career-related tips, and over 100 videos on our YouTube channel that you can watch at your convenience. And I know that we are over the hour, and we had a chance to all of you to ask many questions throughout this program. And Kayla, are there any other questions that really we should ask some of our panelists today? Otherwise, I would say reach out to these wonderful panelists or to career planning and development if you would like additional support.
Yes, I actually think that would be best. So if you entered in your questions in the Ask Question area, we have all of your information as well as your question so that we can reach out to you for more details. So you still have a couple of seconds. If you have any of those lingering questions, enter those into the Q&A and we can share them along with the email address that you used when you registered, and we can share those with the presenters.
Thank you, Kayla. And now I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Stacy Bjorkman to wrap up the program here today.
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who attended tonight and to our amazing presenters. I was really just blown away by all of the wonderful information they had to share. I learned several new things. I refreshed my memory on several others. And it just, the wealth and breadth of experience in this presenter panel is just really impressive. So thank you very much to everyone, and I hope you have a great night.